The credit card statement sat on the kitchen table like a silent intruder, its columns of numbers cutting deeper than any words my children had ever spoken. Line after line, I saw charges I didn't recognize. Not groceries, not emergencies, not the small, occasional things a mother expects to help with. No, this was different. It was florists, banquet halls, catering deposits, the kind of expenses that screamed celebration. But it was a celebration I hadn't been invited to, let alone asked to contribute toward. $17,000. That number alone felt like a blow to the chest. Every dollar carried weight, not just in value, but in what it revealed about how my own daughter saw me. I wasn't a mother to be included, consulted, or cherished. I was a bank account, a name on a card she could swipe whenever she wanted, all under the pretense of love. I had added Haley to my credit card years ago, back when she was still finding her footing. Only for emergencies, I had told her, thinking I was helping her feel safe. I thought it was the kind of gesture a good mother makes, offering a safety net in case life became too heavy. But sitting there that morning, sunlight slicing across the paper like a spotlight on my own naivety, I realized I hadn't given her a net. I had given her permission. Permission to cross boundaries. Permission to believe my sacrifices were her entitlement. Permission to assume that my love was a resource she could endlessly withdraw from. It wasn't anger that came first. It was the ache of betrayal. The kind of betrayal that doesn't come from strangers, but from those you've poured your soul into. Love wasn't supposed to come with a receipt, but suddenly mine did. And the total was staggering. I traced the charges with my fingers, as though touching the ink would make it less real. A venue I had never heard of. Flowers I had never been asked to choose. A future I was being billed for, but not invited to witness. In that moment, the truth cut through every excuse I'd ever made for my children. My love had been mistaken for obligation. And I knew, deep down, that something had to change. The sound of the front door slamming pulled me from my thoughts. "Mom, I need to borrow your car tonight," Travis called out casually, as if my life existed only to serve his convenience. He didn't even step into the kitchen, just barked his request from the hallway, phone in hand, his presence more like that of a spoiled tenant than a grown son. For 6 months, he had lived under my roof rent-free. No contribution to bills, no consideration for the home I had worked so hard to maintain. He moved in temporarily, or so he'd claimed, but temporary had stretched into permanence. His girlfriend, Tasha, had slipped into the picture too, filling the house with her incense and crystals, dismissing my discomfort as negativity. In my own home, I had become the unwelcome guest. I slid the statement across the table when Travis finally appeared. "Did you know about this?" I asked, pointing at the numbers. He gave the paper the briefest glance and shrugged. "Yeah, Haley mentioned it. Look, Mom, it's just money. You've got a house, a pension. You're fine. Just money." 2 words that pierced deeper than the betrayal itself. To him, my life's work, my savings, my security, the foundation his father and I had built, amounted to nothing more than a convenient fund. In that moment, the realization settled heavily. My children no longer saw me as a mother. They saw me as a credit limit. That night, sleep refused to come. My mind replayed every charge, every dismissive word, every moment I had allowed silence to pass as peace. And then Haley's late-night text lit up the phone. "Hey, Mom, can you handle the final catering deposit? Only $2,000. You're the best." Not a request. Not gratitude. An expectation. Something inside me snapped, not in anger, but in clarity. For years, I had mistaken silence for kindness. I believed keeping the peace was an act of love, but now I saw it for what it was: permission. Permission for them to take. Permission for them to assume. Permission for them to forget that I was a person with limits. The next morning, I acted. Calls to the credit card company, the bank, and finally to my lawyer. The card frozen. Travis's access revoked. A will appointment scheduled. By the time I hung up the phone, I felt lighter than I had in years. For the first time, my boundaries weren't just thoughts in my head. They were actions. And actions, I realized, spoke far louder than years of quiet sacrifice. It didn't take long for the walls to shake. By mid-morning, Haley's number lit up my phone again and again until I finally answered. Her voice carried that sugary desperation I had heard since her teenage years. "Mom, something's wrong with your card. The florist says payment didn't go through." "I know," I said simply. "The card has been frozen." The pause on the other end was heavy. Then came the pleading. "Mom, come on. We can fix this. Just call and explain. It's all a mistake." "It's not a mistake," I replied. "You used my card without permission. A wedding is not an emergency." Her tone shifted from coaxing to accusatory. "So you're really going to ruin your only daughter's wedding?" The words landed like a test, a trap wrapped in guilt. But I refused to step into it. "I want you to have a beautiful wedding," I said. "But I want you to pay for it yourself, like adults do." And then, for the first time, I hung up before she did. When I returned from the hardware store with new locks, Travis was waiting, frustrated by his frozen accounts. Tasha was blending smoothies in my kitchen as though she owned the place. "What's going on, Mom?" "Haley's freaking out, and my card's not working." "No, Travis," I said calmly. "It's working exactly as it should. I closed your access." The look on his face was not shock. It was entitlement stripped bare. He couldn't fathom a version of me that said no. But by that afternoon, the locks were changed, the old keys dropped into a jar like relics of a past I was no longer willing to live in. Later, sitting in my lawyer's office, I laid everything out: the years of quiet enabling, the financial exploitation, the guilt that had blurred love into obligation. She listened carefully, then said words that both stung and liberated me. This could constitute elder financial abuse. I didn't want charges. I wanted freedom. I wanted my children to understand that the rules had changed, that their mother wasn't their safety net anymore. By evening, the house felt different. Not empty, not hollow, peaceful. That night, when my neighbor Karen appeared with a casserole and a kind smile, I felt something new stir inside me, the possibility of companionship, of being valued for who I was, not for what I could give. The fallout had begun. My children were unraveling. But for once, I wasn't the one holding the pieces together. The days that followed felt unfamiliar. Quiet. Not the aching quiet of grief that had filled the house after Gerald passed, but a calm born of choice. For the first time in years, no one was texting for deposits. No one was shouting needs from the hallway. No one was draining me under the disguise of love. The silence felt earned. Haley tried once more, showing up at my porch with smudged mascara and trembling words. The venue canceled. The wedding's ruined. I need to come home. But home, I reminded her gently, was not a revolving door. This isn't your home anymore. You have options. You have a job. What you don't have is unlimited access to me. Her eyes burned with disbelief, as though she couldn't comprehend a mother saying no. The truth was, it wasn't cruelty. It was clarity. For years, I had confused enabling with love. But boundaries, I realized, are love in its truest form, love that respects both giver and receiver. When David came by days later, envelope in hand, offering repayment and an apology for what he had unknowingly taken part in, I saw what accountability looked like. No excuses. No guilt trips. Just dignity. It was the first time in years someone had said, "I'm sorry," without a string attached. And then, slowly, a different kind of life began to take shape. Coffee on the porch with Karen, laughter shared over lasagna, small moments of connection that reminded me I was more than a safety net. I was still a woman with dreams, with worth, with something to offer that wasn't financial. In just 3 weeks, the $17,000 was reversed, the locks were changed, the will was updated, and my peace was restored. For the first time, the house wasn't a burden or a battlefield. It was mine. So here's what I've learned. Silence isn't kindness, it's permission. And love without boundaries isn't love at all. If this story moved you, share it. If it reminded you of your own strength, leave a comment. And if you're ready to reclaim your own peace, like and subscribe. Because you matter, not for what you give, but for who you are. Don't forget that.